Afternoon. Today we are going to discuss Woodrow Wilson's intellectual contribution in the world of public administration. Woodrow Wilson is known as the father of the study of public administration by most of the scholars. Woodrow Wilson was a great political scientist. He was an educationist. Woodrow Wilson was also a statesman, and Woodrow Wilson was much better placed compared to many scholars of the time to deal with the questions of political science and public administration, the relationship between the two disciplines of public administration and political science, and the necessity of establishing public administration as a separate discipline. Why? Because apart from his sound academic credentials, Woodrow Wilson had worked as the governor of one of the states in America, and then later on he became the president of America. So Woodrow Wilson had first-hand experience of practical aspects of administration and governance. Woodrow Wilson had closely observed how the political and administrative leadership put together run the government. He was, much better placed to know the comparative significance of the role of administration and politics, nature of administration and politics, the causes of any kind of, or the reason behind any kind of friction between the political and administrative leadership, and the consequence of the same. So therefore, Woodrow Wilson was no doubt, Woodrow Wilson was a better place compared to many scholars. Why? Because not only academically he was sound, but he had practical experience of government and administration, and that too, that too at a level where very few scholars or very few persons reach. Because how many of us get an opportunity to work as the governor as well as the president of any state? So he had an opportunity to see administration and governance from above. No doubt his view and his perception was far more broad and panoramic and integrated in nature compared to many scholars of the time. Clear? Now the question arises, what was the contextual backdrop? Because we know contextual backdrop, for Woodrow Wilson's intellectual contribution to the world of public administration. Firstly, all of us know that every single intellectual contribution of any scholar that comes from the pen of any scholar, it bears the impact of time and space. Where the scholar is writing and what is the time period when he is writing. Because every place and every time period has its own peculiar set of problems, challenges, opportunities, and many more things. And the scholars, representing that time period, generally reflect on the issues, or the subject matters, the problems and such challenges which define that, the time period, or which define that country during that time period, or that state or place, what you say. So therefore, Woodrow Wilson's intellectual contribution too was affected to a great extent. It was influenced or it was affected by the developments which were taking place in America in latter decades of the 19th century. As you know that Woodrow Wilson wrote his essay, The Study of Administration. The title was The Study of Administration. This essay was written by Woodrow Wilson in 1887. It was published in 1887. And most of the scholars even today, endorse this view that this revolutionary essay marks the beginning of that intellectual process which led to the gradual development of public administration as a discipline. Are you getting a point? It means even before Woodrow Wilson, many scholars had expressed at one of the places the necessity to study public administration separately and to establish public administration as a separate discipline. But it was Woodrow Wilson who pursued the case of public administration perhaps more emphatically. And not only he just acknowledged the necessity of establishing public administration as a separate discipline, but he came up with very convincing, the arguments in his essay, why we should study public administration separately from political science. So not only he endorsed the view, but he, unlike other scholars, he pursued the case very, very seriously. And his essay marks the beginning of the process. Why? Because this essay acted as an eye-opener. That essay convinced most of the scholars regarding the necessity to deal public administration separately, from political science. Getting a point? So what was the contextual backdrop that prompted Woodrow Wilson to write such essay? If you examine, you'll find that the last 2-3 decades of 19th century in America was replete with many developments. It was as pullulating as jungle after rain. It is lot of developments were taking place. In the last few decades of 19th century. Why? The impact of industrial revolution, the impact of scintillating achievements in the field of science and technology, and then the growth of money economy, and then the widespread acceptance of capitalism in many countries, capitalism as a model to develop economy and to establish political system. All such factors put together, I mean to say that industrial revolution, growth of money economy, then the forces of capitalism, then significant developments in the field of science and technology, all put together had changed the contextual setting of public administration. First of all, it happened in Europe, and thereafter the impact of the same could be seen in America. So America in the latter decades of 19th century, under the impact of such developments which had firstly taken place in Europe, American society was also undergoing a lot of developments. Woodrow Wilson identified the increasing gap between, or disjunction between, the performance of public administration on the one hand and the expectations of a modern society on the other. He found that public administration was in a very dilapidated state. Not only the institutions or the activities, but academic world of administration too was in a dilapidated state. Public administration was being studied within the broader bounds of political science, and public administration's full gamut and thematic content was not capable of finding expression within the realm of political science. So this was an era, latter decades of 19th century, this was an era of progressive movement wherein the some activists and scholars were looking for some kind of reforms in administration. Why? Because latter decades of 19th century, and then under the impact of latter decades of 19th century in America, was replete with frequent instances of conflict of interest. So on the one hand you had urban population, on the other hand you had rural population. Migration was taking place. How? Because of the process of industrialization. Giant industries had come into existence, huge industries. Now thousands of workers are working under the same roof, but the style of management was still obsolete and antediluvian. Then public administration was in a state of confusion, because it was not clear that what would be the subject matter, what would be the operational domain of public administration, what are the things to be controlled by public administration. And public administration was also suffering from the prevailing spoil system. Do you know what is spoil system? A spoil system that prevailed in America. What was this system? And this system was based on the principle that to the victor goes the spoil. It means the political party which emerges victorious in election, that political party used to appoint, political party emerging victorious in elections used to appoint persons, its own persons, to various positions of administration. various positions in administration, positions of strategic significance. So the political parties used to appoint their loyalists to those positions. It means good number of appointments were taking place. Good number of appointments in administration were taking place, not so much on the basis of merit and competence, but on the basis of political loyalty. And this was known as spoil system. And that system had in a way crippled the efficiency of public administration. Are you getting a point? Woodrow Wilson was not in favor of this spoil system. So this was the problem of administration. Political interference in public administration was a very common thing, and urban classes too were very much common. Migration from rural areas to urban areas in search of job and employment opportunity, gradual changes in the nature of economy, and gradual movement towards capitalist economy, the impact of money economy, all such factors put together had created a kind of chaotic condition. Getting a point? Private administration too was suffering from various limitations because administration and management as a subject, as a science, was still undergoing in a very rudimentary stage of development. Because giant industries had come into existence, but there was nothing like science of management. There was nothing to suggest them how to control and regulate the affairs of the organization, human resource and material resource. So many organizations were incurring loss. One by one, many organizations had collapsed. So whether it is public administration or private administration, or in general the society which was undergoing a fast transformation and change, as a consequence, conflict of interest was inevitable between the different stakeholders and the interest groups. In this kind of highly effervescent environmental conditions, public administration was finding it very much difficult to deal with the things. Why? Because internally public administration too lacked that institutional capacity to overcome the problems thrown by the external environment. It was against this backdrop that Woodrow Wilson realized the necessity of taking public administration very, very seriously and initiating an intellectual process to separate administration from political science so that it could be done due justice to, or public administration as a subject could be given an opportunity to undergo full-scale, evolution, could be given an opportunity for full-scale growth and development. So Woodrow Wilson realized in the latter decades of 19th century, in this kind of condition, Woodrow Wilson realized the necessity of initiating the process for the separate study of public administration from political science. Please remember, any subject or discipline, the academic dimension of any subject and the applied dimension of any subject or discipline, they are internally connected, they are integrally connected to each other. It means unless you study the subject and discipline, unless you conduct research, you collect facts and details and propound theories, how can you bring desirable changes in the applied aspect of that subject? It means on the one hand you have administrators, you have magistrate, you have superintendent of police officers and other civil servants. So they are following some technique, method and process, over a long period of time to get the things done. But on the other hand, if you have academicians who are studying that subject or technique, method, process, and they keep, propounding new theories, how to make the best out of the limited, the resources. So unless academic world of public administration grows and a science of administration is developed, you cannot bring appropriate changes in the practical dimension, or you can say applied aspect of the public administration. So efficiency of administration in action depends on you can say academic gravity and richness of the public administration. Scholars do study and they propound new theories, they suggest new ways and means, and administrators, in the light of such suggestions, bring appropriate changes in the execution of things. So applied aspect and theoretical, both of them are interdependent and interrelated. So accordingly, Woodrow Wilson realized that whether it is academic world of public administration or the practical aspect of public administration, both of them were not properly placed to overcome the challenges thrown in front of them. So that's why Woodrow Wilson initiated that process by writing an essay. In this essay, Woodrow Wilson expressed whatever he had observed and whatever he had seen, the first-hand experience, the problems and challenges and opportunities which were available, which could be harnessed to the benefit of the entire society. So Woodrow Wilson wrote his essay, The Study of Administration. This is the contextual backdrop of the intellectual contributions made by the Woodrow Wilson. Points clear? Now come to the content of the essay. Inspired by this situation, circumstances, he wrote this essay. The title of the essay was The Study of Administration. So what is the thematic content of the study of administration? This essay. Woodrow Wilson in this essay basically focused on 5-6 areas. What are those areas and what are those issues which he found a matter of concern for the contemporary world of administration? Firstly, Woodrow Wilson dealt with the question of what and how of public administration. He tried to initiate debate and discussion regarding the necessity of drawing the operational domain, boundary, or you can say jurisdiction of public administration, and then the necessity to work on the technique, method and process. So first theme in the essay is what and how of public administration. Second theme in his essay, was politics administration dichotomy. This is the doctrine. Woodrow Wilson propounded his doctrine of politics administration dichotomy. Try to understand. The word itself expresses. So Woodrow Wilson here tried to reflect on the distinct nature of politics and administration. He came up with arguments to prove how the world of politics is different from the world of administration. And then he also acknowledged the practical situation wherein both politics and administration need to work together despite having distinct operational, or you can say philosophical orientation. Getting a point? So second theme is politics administration dichotomy. Third theme is the administrative science. Woodrow Wilson dealt with the question of administrative science. What happened in European countries and what was the necessity to develop administrative science. Then Woodrow Wilson deals with the topic of civil services, the need to develop professionally competent and neutral civil services. Then Woodrow Wilson deals with the question of comparative method of study. What should be the method of study for the growth and development of public administration as a discipline? Okay, and then he came up with his perspective on the government. Getting a point? These are the main areas which were dealt with, in this essay, The Study of Administration by Woodrow Wilson. The first is the what and how of public administration. Woodrow Wilson was aware of the increasing complexity of governance in the contemporary world. In the Woodrow Wilson expressed his concern for the increasing responsibilities of public administration because of modern democratic welfare, the philosophy of modern democratic welfare state. He found that the challenges and the problems in front of public administration demanded some kind of improvement or reforms in the institutional capacity, and orientation of public administration. So Woodrow Wilson was of the view that first of all we need to do away in this complex situation. First of all, we need to do away with the confusion. It means we should decide what subject matters are to be taken care of by public administration and what subject matters are to be taken care of by private administration on its own. He was of the view that unless we decide what, we cannot effectively move towards why, or how, you can say. How? So Woodrow Wilson was of the view that first of all we should determine, or we should decide the operational domain. what subjects can be taken up, subject matters can be taken up by public administration. And once the what dimension is taken care of, then we should focus on the how dimension of public administration. How means the technique, method, process, how to get the things done. So Woodrow Wilson was the view that what, firstly we should tackle what, and then we should move towards how. Then Woodrow Wilson, in the second thing was politics administration dichotomy. The study of administration deals with politics administration dichotomy. First of all, I would like to make it clear at the outset that this doctrine of politics administration dichotomy is given disproportionately, almost disproportionately, critics say disproportionately is more space compared to other things. It means this essay, the central theme of this essay, you can say the most important thing which occupies the center stage in this essay is the doctrine of politics administration dichotomy. So what it is it all about? Politics of doctrine of politics administration dichotomy. According to Woodrow Wilson, politics and administration are different from each other. Politics and administration are different from each other. How? According to Woodrow Wilson, politics is mainly concerned with policy formulation or decision making, whereas public administration is mainly concerned with execution or implementation of such policies. So it means Woodrow Wilson was of the view that public administration is mainly concerned with execution and not with the policy formulation. He was not in favor of giving a wider or the broader role, to public administration. In fact, he defined public administration as nothing but detailed and systematic application of law. So according to Woodrow Wilson, administration is nothing but the detailed and systematic application of law. It is for the political leadership to decide the things and to come up with the vision for progressive changes or transformation in society, and it is for public administration, which is an instrument, it is for public administration to execute that vision into reality. Woodrow Wilson further explains and says that politics is the sphere of politics is a sphere of function, which is politics and administration are two different spheres of functions. So politics is the province of statesmen, whereas administration is the province of technical persons, technical officials. So it means those who are associated with politics, they are supposed to come up with some kind of vision. They are required to define objectives and purpose. They are required to take some, value-centric decisions. But administration, on the other hand, is manned by the professionally competent persons with deep technical knowledge of administration. They know how to plan, how to organize, how to control and regulate. So the sphere of administrative function stands on a different footing from the sphere of politics. This is the province of officials, and they are not concerned with vision, rather they are more concerned with mission. They are not so much concerned with policy formulation. Administrative officials, they are mainly concerned with implementation. Getting a point? So Woodrow Wilson assigns a very specific and limited role to public administration. At one place in his essay, he writes that political questions are not administrative questions, and administrative questions are not political questions. So Woodrow Wilson here tries to draw the line of distinction between the nature and the content of the problems and challenges confronting politics and administration. He says that politics is the world of hurry and strife, whereas administration is like business. What is the meaning of that? He is trying to suggest that the politics by its very nature is a zone of hurry and strife, opportunism, wherein alliances are made, alliances are broken, number of value-centric decisions are taken. Getting a point? This is the zone which is highly volatile in nature, you can say, or unstable. Frequent developments keep taking place. So politics is the world of hurry and strife. Here the participants constantly working to dislodge each other. Why? Because one cannot assume political power unless he has defeated the others. Getting your point? So here, developments keep taking place every now and then. This is a highly proliferating zone. On the other hand, he says that zone of administration is very much like business. So he's trying to suggest, though it has been interpreted in a number of ways by the scholars, but there can be different meanings of this sentence, that administration is like business. So he is of the view that administration, the zone of administration is comparatively stable compared to politics. You have some well-settled principles, rules, regulations which govern the administrative action. Or you can say another way, he was trying to suggest that whether it is public administration or business, I mean to say private administration, fundamental principles and rules are applicable to both of them uniformly. Clear? But at every place, Woodrow Wilson has acknowledged, as I said, that the Woodrow Wilson is not only an academician or an educationist or a scholar. Woodrow Wilson had a deep experience of the practical dimension of governance and administration. So that's why, while he says that political questions are not administrative questions, politics is separate from administration, but at one place he acknowledges that administration mirrors the government of the day. It means popular perception of government. How the people in any country, how the people perceive a government, it depends heavily on the efficiency of administration. Getting a point? So it means perception of people. Popular perception of the government has to do a lot with the efficiency and effectiveness of administration. So there is a link between, there's the integral, you can say an important link between administration on the one hand and politics on the other. That's why he says that administration in any country, administration mirrors the government of the day. So this was about politics and administration. And Woodrow Wilson at number of places directly and indirectly suggested that because politics is the world of hurry and strife, a lot of opportunism, ups and downs, therefore, and administration is different from politics. Therefore, we should devise ways and means to insulate administration against the instability of political world. We should not allow undesirable interference of political leadership in the world of administration. What is unstable tends to bring instability. At all those places it is associated with. So therefore, Woodrow Wilson was of the view that administration should be professionally competent and they should be neutral. We should devise ways, means, mechanism to insulate public administration against the possible influences of political instability in our country. Or we should devise ways and means to restrict the possibilities of political interference in the affairs of administration. Administration, unlike politics, is required to deal with facts. They should work on the basis of some predetermined or scientifically designed rules and regulations, method, techniques, and process. If administration is allowed to be interfered with, in that case, the instability which characterizes the political world will also cripple the efficiency, will bring instability in the administration and will cripple the efficiency of public administration as well. This was about politics and administration dichotomy. Getting a point? The third, the theme that Woodrow Wilson dealt with, the third important thing was administrative science. Woodrow Wilson was in favor of developing a science of administration. When there can be, physical science, when there can be biological science, there can be a science like chemistry, there can be a science to deal with society or human behavior. Why cannot there be a science of administration? So Woodrow Wilson was in favor of developing the science of administration, and in his essay, Woodrow Wilson, without any inhibition, acknowledged that he was inspired by and he was very much impressed by the development of administrative science in European countries. Woodrow Wilson accepted that insofar as development of administrative science is concerned, European countries were ahead of America. And in fact, Woodrow Wilson expressed his desire to, import that administrative science, the knowledge associated with that administrative science to America to improve the efficiency of administration. That collective knowledge, that cornucopia of information which had evolved, which had developed regarding administration and management, in European countries, could be imported to America to improve the quality of administration there as well. So Woodrow Wilson was very much, impressed by the development of science of administration in European countries, and he wanted to import such technology to the benefit of America. But Woodrow Wilson also accepted that the growth and development of science of administration in many European countries was mainly attributable to the absolute monarchies prevailing there. And if that science of administration had not developed so much in America, to some extent it was attributable to the prevailing democracy of America. So he is not trying to reflect on the limitations of democracy. He is just trying to convey this message that when you have monarchy, or when you have a centralized political authority, sometimes it acts in limited sphere, it acts as a blessing in disguise. Because you have an absolute monarchy, the monarch is extremely powerful, all authority is concentrated in the hands of monarch, and people enjoy limited rights or no rights at all. So you don't need to face, that opposition and that friction between the government on the one hand and society on the other. So the political leadership in this kind of monarchical arrangement, absolute monarchy or centralized authority, political leadership finds it very convenient. If they are convinced, it is easier for them to pursue reforms. If they are willing to bring the changes in the structure, method, technique, process, or the behavioral profile or orientation of administration. So it becomes easier for them to bring such changes. Why? Because they are not so much constrained by the necessity. They are not constrained by the necessity to develop consensus, among the people who may differ in their view and opinion. In contraposition to that, in democracy, it is not so easy to bring reforms. It is not so easy to develop science and to execute the same. Why? Because in democracy, political leadership can never be free from, all this, the complex tantrums of, diverse view and opinions being expressed by different groups and communities, conflict of interest. By the time you develop consensus, sometimes the subject matter ends up losing its relevance. So while democracy has number of merits, but there is no denying the fact that in a democratic arrangement, the imperatives of developing consensus and to ensure that changes are largely inspired by the consensual strength that you have developed, it takes a lot of time. This kind of imperativeness or the obligation cost the reforms dearly. Getting a point? It is not so easy to bring such kind of reforms. So Woodrow Wilson was impressed by the development of science of administration in European countries, but it was largely attributable to prevailing absolute monarchies there, where monarchs were free from the necessity to build consensus, etc. And that was not available in case of America. That's why the development of science of administration had been delayed in America. Point is clear? Then Woodrow Wilson deals with civil services. Civil services, Woodrow Wilson was of the view that there should be, professionally competent and neutral civil services in any country to look after the things. So he emphasized mainly on professional competence, and second is neutrality. Why he focused on neutrality? Because under a spoil system, administrative leadership could hardly be neutral. Why? Because if officers are appointed at the top, not so much because of their merit and competence, but more because of their political loyalty, then in the course of discharging their responsibilities, they would certainly ensure that their actions are compatible with the ideology of the political party in power. So this was, a problem. So Woodrow Wilson was the view that for the growth and development and for welfare of society, it is extremely essential that we develop a professionally competent, well-organized, scientifically designed, neutral, politically neutral civil services.